Hey guys, it's Girl Got Game, and welcome to Changeling, a visual novel by Steamberry that I checked out way back in 2019. Also, why is my mouse up there? There we go. Immediately distracted. Yes, I checked this out many years ago, loved what I saw, did a gander on it for about an hour and a half or something like that, and haven't had a chance to get back to actually playing the full game. But now, the time has finally come. Now, full disclaimer, I was given a key by the developers way back when I covered their game, so if you think that'll influence my opinions in any way, you should know right up front. But, yeah, I'm really, really excited for this, because we've got all kinds of supernatural boys ahead of us. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Now, normally, when I start these games, I look up to see if there's any recommended route order, which for this, I didn't find any, so correct me if I'm wrong. So usually when that happens, I will date the first boyo I lay my eyes upon. But then I went into extras, and we got endings and extras. And you can see the boys are kind of all nicely laid out here with our girl at the end, who also has an ending of her own. So, with that being said, I thought I would do this Hakuoki style and go in order of the boys that we see at the top. Which means Glasses Boy will be our first boyo that we're gonna date. And that's the plan as of right now, so yeah. I don't remember too much. Probably stuff will come back to me as I go through the first hour and a half again. But I'm pretty sure I checked like the main guys' voices that I gave them originally. And so hopefully I remember everybody else's voices as I go, but we'll figure it out. We'll get there. Let's start this business. Okay. So should I change? I think I had Mariposa as my name when I played this back in the day, but I think I'll keep it as Nora. Might as well. We'll keep things samey. Man, you can even do your last name. That's really cool. I don't remember that from before, but that was probably there. And I don't remember what I picked for my last name for sure, so we'll just do Nora Lewis. That's fine. And now the story begins, Nora Lewis. She looks like a Nora anyway. When I was little, I dreamed of being carried away to a far-off land. It was a recurring dream of flying through the air surrounded by softly singing voices. Back then, I read book after book of old fairy tales in my grandmother's study, the kind where good children didn't always make it out of the dark swamp unscathed, and sometimes the goblins won. Okay, let's read this for a sec. Look at this beautiful artwork. When the world was young and the boundaries between the natural and supernatural were less distinct, the Fae were much more widespread than they are in modern times. They dwelt in every forest, in every tree or stone, and under every hill. They were secretive and shy, but even if they stayed out of sight, they were never far from where humans were. Before mortals grew away from nature, fairies always lingered near to watch them. Most fairies had a great love for humans, especially human children. Though their lives were short, their souls were like brilliant flames that burned out all too quickly. And like moths to candles, the Fae were drawn to those flames. They would wait until night to sneak through open windows or slip through any crack in search of unguarded human children. When they found them defenseless and unprotected, the fairies would carry these babies to the realm of Fae in hopes of rejuvenating their own frail race with the vibrant fire of human life force. And in the place of the stolen baby, they would leave a fairy child disguised with fairy glamour. These children were called changelings. Title drop, da-da-da. So I was trying to figure out if our girl is a changeling, or if people wondered if she was a changeling. So hopefully we'll find out. During the day, I would run through the forest by our house and pretend the stories were real. Every tree was a sentinel watching over me, and rustling leaves were the sweet whispers of fairies coaxing me further and further from the house. Then it all crumbled. The trees and games had to be left behind. Books were left to gather dust on shelves, and dreams were left to fade into memory. Years passed, and all that remained were the distant games and pretend play of childhood. Back then, I didn't know that real fairy tales were darker than anything I could possibly have dreamed up on my own. Chapter 1, Homecoming. The Common Route. I probably have to click, don't I? Yes. Friday, October 8th. Alright. Oh, that's right. It's coming back to me now that we were moving back to our old town where the event happened as a child. I remember there being an event. Now I'm like, oh yeah, we were moving there, and my twin brother hates me? I want to say twin brother. Anyway, we had nearly reached the new house. I was eager to get out of this cramped car and see the new place. The long road trip wasn't agreeing with me, but I couldn't complain too much. After 5 years in a city I hated, we were finally moving back to Pine Hollow, the place where I grew up. See, I hate the city, but you want to go back to nature. Suspicious. That alone was enough to keep my sanity intact during the tense trip back. Unfortunately, the reason behind the move wasn't fantastic. Grandpa was ill again, and this time was under strict orders to take it easy. Since he had to avoid stress, he needed Dad's help with his business. Of course, he didn't think so. But Grandma was adamant. Get help or retire. So we were on our way back so Dad could take over. In theory, anyway. Not that Grandpa would let him. In any case, Dad wasn't too happy about leaving his current job or our house in the city behind, much less moving back across state lines to our previous home. I was, though. I missed Grandma and Grandpa. I missed the trees and the looming embrace of the mountains that made Pine Hollow feel enclosed and protected. I missed my best friend. What I wouldn't miss was the stifling humidity of the city, the constant smell of hot rubber and car exhaust. Not to mention the lack of stars and the way rain made everything smell like rust instead of warm earth. It wasn't all terrible. The parks were pretty, and being nearer to the water had been fun. School hadn't been awful. I was hardly the loner girl skulking in the corners. I'd had friends, and I would miss them. But Allie wasn't just a friend. She was practically family. No one in the city could compare with that. And the city had never felt like home. I smiled slightly at the scenery beyond the car window. As the scenery beyond the car windows became more and more familiar, my tiredness faded to excitement. I remember you. This new house isn't that far from the old one, is it? They're only a few miles apart. This one's in a different neighborhood, though.
Lots of trees, very wooded. I think you two will really like it after we get settled in.
Dad said that, but from the look on Spencer's face, I didn't think it was true. Not for him, anyway. Dad pointed to a small forested mountain a few miles ahead.
The neighborhood is nestled right at the foot there and winds up the slope. It feels rural, but it's within walking distance of the town square.
I was glad that it didn't look like much development had happened in the years we'd been gone. In fact, it didn't look like much had changed at all. So much forest! I almost forgot what it was like. Looks easy to get lost in. I gave him a sharp look and found him staring at me in that disquieting way he'd picked up over the last few years. He was already trying to start a fight about that. I quickly looked away, unwilling to give him the satisfaction. Another thing I missed was me and Spencer being close, like everyone seemed to think twins ought to be. But I didn't think that just moving back to Pine Hollow was going to fix that, though. Not with jabs like that aimed at me. Let it go already. No one is going to get lost. And I want you both to give me your word you'll be careful in the forest. I don't want to have to ban you from hiking. Ugh, and now Mom was starting too. I slumped back in the seat, watching the kaleidoscope of fall colors slide past. I had expected that issue to be brought up now that we were moving back, but I hadn't expected to start getting lectured before we even reached the new house.
The realtor said there are trails.
But you know that probably means animal trails, not actual hiking trails. It can be dangerous if you aren't careful.
We're not little kids anymore.
There are lots of coyotes here, and cougars, even bears. There's also a pretty deep ravine in the woods behind the house from what I understand.
We just want to make sure everyone stays safe. Now that we're back, we don't want...
Jeez, it's been 5 years. I couldn't entirely blame everyone for their uneasiness about the whole thing. The disappearance 5 years ago. My disappearance 5 years ago was the reason we moved in the first place. Not just the disappearance itself, though I'd been gone for more than a week, and that had definitely caused some drama. But there was the issue of how I just showed back up, and the other things that happened around that time. 5 years later, and my family was still shadowed by the repercussions of what had happened back then. Of course, I wanted them to move on. Everything back then had been my fault. Not just the drama the family had endured as a whole, but also what had happened to Spencer. Those weren't wounds that could just heal overnight. Not the emotional ones, not the physical ones, and definitely not the one inflicted on our relationship. And no amount of apologizing had ever helped. I forgot how beautiful this game is. Look at this background art. So nice. Dad turned onto a quiet street that wound its way up into the trees. A few rooftops poked through the foliage. It was a great neighborhood that reminded me a little of where we'd lived before. The sweetness of nostalgia helped wash away some of the lingering bitterness from the previous conversation. I loved the place from the moment we turned onto the street and passed over a trickling creek that vanished into the woods. Down at the foot of the mountain, and within walking distance of the houses, was the main street of the town, filled with little shops and restaurants. But the neighborhood, hidden behind a thick wall of trees and curled around the mountainside, felt secluded and quiet. It was beautiful and perfect.
Nora, go check the boxes up in your room to make sure they put the right ones there. I'll let you unpack your things first, then I want you downstairs to help in the kitchen.
Spencer, same for you!
Movers had already arranged most of the furniture in the house under Grandma's supervision, but the boxes with the smaller items and personal belongings still needed unpacking. Since she had to take care of Grandpa, Grandma couldn't do much more than tell them where to put the furniture and try to get the basics set up for us. We still had a ton of work to do. Mom immediately busied herself trying to hang curtains and make the house look lived in. Dad started ripping into the boxes in the family room. Spencer vanished upstairs. I left Mom in the kitchen and went to take a look at the rest of the downstairs. This house is really great.
I'm glad you like it, honey.
It wasn't new, but had been renovated inside. It looked modern and new, but still felt old and full of memories. And someone else's history. I love it already. My bedroom was right next to Spencer's. The only thing separating them was a small shared bathroom. That was going to be so much fun. He tended to act like any intrusion into his personal space was a huge affront, so I had to walk on eggshells if I didn't want to fight with him. I could only begin to imagine his whining about having to share counter space with all my icky girl things, like a hairbrush and hand lotion. The horror! That aside, my room was pretty nice. It was bright and airy, and I loved seeing my things already put exactly where I'd have put them anyway. It looks like Grandma even got my bed ready. All I had to do was unpack the rest of my personal stuff. I started with my school things, pulling the tape off one box to get at what was inside. Suddenly, the door to my side of the bathroom burst open. Spencer stalked in, dropping a dusty box on my clean bedspread. He could have at least knocked. They gave me one of yours. Don't pick a fight. Just stay calm. I moved the box to the floor without saying anything. Spencer started to leave. Hang on. Let me make sure I don't have any of yours. Hopefully he didn't make a habit of bursting in. Being my twin brother didn't mean he got to invade my privacy whenever he wanted. Especially since he'd have an aneurysm if I had slammed into his room that way. I quickly sorted through the boxes to see if any of his were lurking in my room. Sure enough, I found one with his name clearly scrawled on the top. Here, I think this one has some of your clothes. I nudged the box toward him with my foot. He scowled at me before picking it up and stalking back to his room. The door on his side of the bathroom slammed shut. Yeah, you're welcome. It felt like every interaction with him was like that lately. It was worse than ever, actually. But then, he wasn't likely to forget his negative memories of Pine Hollow soon, and I was pretty sure he was just annoyed by the fact I was happy to be back, which meant taking it out on me, of course. He'd never loved this place the way I had anyway, so he wasn't really inclined to overlook the bad memories in the first place. I continued pulling things out of boxes. Patience, patience. It was just hard to have all this stuff stirred up again. I mean, even if I accepted responsibility for what happened back then, I didn't think it meant I also had to sentence myself to guilt and misery forever. Not for something that had happened when I was 12. Something I couldn't even remember. I left my boxes on the floor and went to peer out the window. I guess that makes us 17 right now? I pressed my head against the glass, watching the trees sway slightly in the fall breeze. It was probably stupid to say I felt more complete in this town. Yes, about that. At a glance, it looked like dozens of others you could find scattered through the area. It was beautiful and sunny sometimes, and others it was really eerie. There were days when the clouds hung low over the mountains, the fog was super thick through the trees, and you could almost imagine it was haunted. The truth was that I felt I'd lost something in this place 5 years ago. Maybe I was only happy to be here because I felt that now I had the chance to get it back. I left the window and went back to unpacking before Mom started yelling at me to come join the battle of unbubble wrapping the kitchenware. In any case, I was being annoyingly sentimental. Pine Hollow was special to me maybe, but it wasn't special in general. It was one of those little towns with more urban legends than any reasonable person could count, hundreds of stories about creepy happenings in the woods, and for every one of them, no matter how unlikely, there were dozens of people willing to believe it. That's probably why people were so quick to leap on the oddities of my disappearances. They weren't really even that odd. At least I didn't think so. Disappearances? Did I read that right? Hold on, can I scroll? Yeah, multiple disappearances? Okay. The rational public wrote them off as strange but explainable. I got lost, then got unlost. Big deal. Though, to be fair, the first time it happened I was 9, okay. And when I got unlost, I was also unhurt, even after 10 days in the woods alone. It was definitely lucky I got home safely. It wasn't supernatural, not like some people apparently insisted. It was just the amnesia that caught people off guard, I think. I couldn't remember a thing that happened while I was missing. I still couldn't. But psychogenic amnesia was a thing. What kid would want to remember being terrified in the woods for a week and a half? Not me. Clearly. I started filling my closet with clothes and carefully lined up my shoes and boots. I should totally get a new pair to celebrate being home. I left the closet and began arranging my study things on the desk. We'd be starting back to school on Monday, after an inevitably busy weekend. The same private school we'd gone to before we left. That was the only thing I had mixed feelings about. There had just been such a fuss about my last disappearance. The one when I was 12. That one had been the real catalyst for everything. That had been when everything just broke. I'd been missing for nearly 2 full weeks. The newspapers were running dramatic and hopeless stories. There was speculation about whether I was a runaway or if it was a ploy for attention. After all, it had happened to me before. There were search parties out every day looking for any sign of me. My parents were heartbroken. Again. Spencer was out with a search party one evening and got separated from them. They heard his scream and feared the worst. But he ran out of the woods a short time later in hysterics, clutching at one of his eyes. Then I walked out after him in a daze, but unharmed. They never found anything wrong with his eye. He lost the vision in it, but no one knew the reason. He was saying a lot of crazy things at the time. No one knew if he'd hit his head or had maybe gotten attacked by a stray cougar. And again, I didn't remember a thing. There was a lot of public interest in the incident due to the fact that it was the second one involving our family, and me specifically. People loved mysteries, and I had given them one. If I wasn't making it up, and I wasn't, then what sort of trauma would give me amnesia twice? No one could do anything but speculate, endlessly. My family tried to just get on with life, but it hadn't been easy. More like impossible. There had just been too much stupid speculation and skepticism. At school, there were rumors that we'd both done the whole thing for attention and Spencer's injury was fake, that he had a psychotic episode and tried to kill me. It was a mess. And so we just left. Ugh, why am I even thinking about this again? I shook off all those old negative thoughts. It was years ago. People had forgotten. Everything was going to be fine. Right? I stacked the empty boxes off to the side. On the opposite side of the room, I set up my painting things. The cabinet for my art supplies was nearby, and I quickly stacked everything inside. The sunny room was going to be perfect for painting. It even faced north. I loved that they remembered that when they picked this room for me.
Nora, are you finished yet?
I'm nearly done. Give me a few more minutes. I turned my attention to my small library of old books. I had all the classics, all used and worn and beautiful. And, of course, there was lots of Shakespeare. It only took a few minutes to get the books on the shelves. I'd try to organize them properly tomorrow. Once I was finished unpacking, I gave my room a satisfied once-over before heading downstairs to help Mom unpack the kitchen. What should I do with the boxes in my room?
We'll have to figure out what the recycling pickup schedule is so we can crush them and set them out. For now, just leave them.
Okay.
Meanwhile, can you set these out on the back porch?
She motioned to a few large empty flower pots near the table. No problem.
When you're back, I have a few things for you to take to the basement.
Yay.
Come on, hurry it up!
Aye, Captain. I hefted the stack of pots and managed to wobble my way to the back door with them. Navigating the door handle was a bit interesting, but I managed to get outside without breaking anything. Heaven forbid you put the pots down to open the door and then pick them up again. I set them down near one of the brick columns and looked across the overgrown backyard. Something interesting caught my eye, and I hopped off the porch to go investigate. At the back, in a little hollowed-out area near the fence, was a large ring of white mushrooms with round caps. A fairy ring. Yeah, a fairy ring! Those are so awesome. I love those. You can actually see it in the bottom corner. Hey, look at that. I smiled as I crouched down and poked one of them. We'd had one at our last house, too. How convenient. Dad had tried everything to get rid of it, but it was very persistent. No matter what he treated it with, it always came back. He wouldn't be happy about it, but for some reason, I liked having it there. Oh, look at our girl. There she is. I smiled slightly, remembering playing with Spencer in our previous backyard. We'd play tag, and whoever made it inside the circle first would be safe. Or we'd lay inside it and pretend we could see the fairies dancing on the mushroom tops or playing in the tree branches. Okay, I want to see like the further out version. Nice. Girls got style. I took a long, deep breath. I'm so glad to be back. What are you doing out here? I stood, carefully brushing off my jeans. Why does he always have to sound so angry? Mom has more work for you to do. You know, if you have time between daydreaming and communing with nature. Is it possible for you to speak to me like I'm a human being? It would be if I was sure you were a human being. I hated the way he always said things like that with a completely straight face. Ha ha. Very amusing. I assure you that sisters are indeed humans. Brothers, however, I'm not sure about. Normally, one would assume he hadn't meant it literally, but I could never tell with him. Just get back inside. As he turned away, he snapped a foot out, kicking over a few of the mushrooms. I'm gonna stay calm about this. It's alright. Don't gotta get very angry just yet. Why did he always try to ruin things just because I liked them? I wanted to get angry, but then we'd just fight, and I didn't want to fight with him anymore. It took all my self-control to swallow down the irritation. I stared at the broken fairy ring and bit my lower lip. You know, in stories, fairies tend to get pretty ticked off if you mess with their stuff. A strange look passed over his face, sort of confused and fearful at once. What the... Because... it's a fairy ring? That's what a circular formation of mushrooms is called? Whatever. He stalked back inside, leaving me by the broken fairy ring. I looked down at the crumpled mushrooms lying in broken bits on the grass. They'd grow back. It was stupid to care. But what if it's your fairy ring and you're upset because you're a fairy? I hated seeing something pretty messed up for a stupid reason. I hated that he had to ruin everything like some kind of creepy assassin of joy. I love it. I shoved my hands in my pockets and headed back inside. There was a quiet rustle of dried leaves behind me, and I glanced back. There was nothing there. Probably a squirrel or something. But you used to imagine rustling leaves were fairies. Casting one last glance at the fairy ring, I stepped back into the kitchen prepared for a list of chores to complete before dinner. I was just glad Dad was already talking about ordering pizza instead of trying to cook. That night, I had a vivid dream. In it was the sense I was looking for something and that I had to find my way home. There were tall trees draped in emerald moss and groping branches that reached to the sun. There was faint singing, childish voices whose words I couldn't make out. It was a dream that left the taste and smell of warm, wet earth in my mouth as I woke. The smell quickly faded and was replaced by that of bacon and eggs as sunlight warmed my eyelids, beckoning me to wake up. A much nicer smell. And now Saturday. I rolled over and snuggled deep into my blankets. Mom was already up. I could hear her downstairs talking to Dad as she cooked breakfast. The prickle of sunlight against my eyelids coaxed me out of sleep and warmed my face.
Nora, I know you want to sleep in, but we still have a lot of unpacking to do.
I'm up! Sort of. The last remnants of my dream faded as I staggered out of bed into my closet to rummage for something to wear. It was a dream I'd had many times, though not for a while. With that sense of having to get home, I assumed it was a dream from when I'd gotten lost in the woods. From when I'd gotten spirited away, as my grandmother always called it. Being back must have been dredging up some of the old feelings from back then. I glanced toward my half-open curtains. It looks a bit chilly this morning. I should probably find something warm. This far north, it always felt like summer simply stopped abruptly, giving way to instant autumn. Yesterday when we had arrived, it had been sunny with a hint of chill, but I was betting the mornings were pretty cold. Hey! Mom says to stop fooling around and get your butt downstairs! I nearly jumped out of my skin when he just walked into my room. In response, I snatched a stray sock and threw it his way. I'm getting dressed, you creep! Then shut the door! Fine! I marched across the room to slam the door in Spencer's face. I'm just gonna wear what I wore yesterday. I threw my clothes on and wrangled my curly hair into some semblance of a ponytail. Not exactly the height of stylishness, but we still had unpacking to do, and Mom could be a slave driver. Function over fashion, or whatever. I got downstairs in time to see Mom setting out the plates.
First breakfast in the new house.
Wow, you really went all out. Bacon, eggs, even pancakes, and glorious, glorious coffee. Dad walked by munching on something, and Mom scowled at him.
Sit at the table if you want to eat.
Too busy.
He reached for another piece of bacon, but she slapped his hand. He just grinned at her. As soon as she turned away, he grabbed the bacon and shoved it in his mouth and fled the room. I rolled my eyes at them and was about to sit when Mom yanked my breakfast away ruthlessly. What? Uh-oh. She pointed to several garbage bags in a box by the door. Uh-oh.
You said you'd take them out last night and didn't. The bags go to the bins out front and the box goes to the tool shed out back. Both of them. Before breakfast.
Mom, I'm hungry. I crave sustenance. I made sad, whining noises and pawed at her from my plate. She wasn't buying it. Spencer swung by the table and took my plate out of her hand, snatching a slice of bacon off it and shoving it in his mouth. Like father, like son. Thanks, Mom. Looks delicious. That's mine, just so you know. He sidled past me, holding the plate just out of reach.
There's plenty of food. Take the trash out, then you can eat.
You are so mean. All of you. It was useless to argue. I already knew that. I trudged to the door, fumbling with a pair of flip-flops there before picking my poison and heading out. I remember going to the backyard the first time, so I'm gonna go to the front. Either way, I'm not gonna run into that boy. I remember distinctly when I ran into him, and that's not right now either way. I hope you know that this is cruel and unusual punishment.
It's not punishment, just fulfilling obligations.
Cruel! I barely got the last word in before the door slammed shut. She was big about obligations and responsibilities, but considering that Dad was much worse, I probably shouldn't complain. I headed down the short drive to where the jumbled bins were sitting just behind the mailboxes. It was a gorgeous, crisp fall morning, chilly but invigorating. And it was a real shame I was going to spend it cleaning and unpacking when I could be contacting Allie to hang out. We hadn't seen each other in 5 years, so I was really looking forward to catching up. I just hoped I'd at least have time to call her later in the day. I was in the middle of dropping the bags into the green bin when a loud crash, followed by a few desperate curses, came from just over the wooden fence. More crashes, and what sounded like scattering cans and plastic bottles ensued. We hadn't met the neighbors yet, so I wasn't sure I wanted to go poking my nose over the fence, but it sounded like someone was having some major issues over there.
Oh, no!
There was the sound of scattering trash again. I tossed the bags in the bin and slammed the lid shut before taking a peek around the side of the fence. There was a boy about my age riding several garbage bins and hastily picking up scattered paper and plastics before shoving them in a blue container. Hey! I remember you, Mr. Purple Boy. Need a hand?
Whoa!
I'd clearly startled him. In a rather spectacular display, he jumped nearly a foot in the air and somehow ended up on his butt on the ground. He stared up at me with pale green eyes. Okay. Weird eyes. He jumped to his feet, snatching a plastic bottle off the grass as he did so.
No, I got it. Just gotta pick everything up.
He dropped the bottle into the recycling bin, giving me an embarrassed smile.
They sort of attacked when I was bringing the trash out.
Fair enough. I've waged epic battle with many a trash bin myself.
They're a terrible enemy, to be sure.
Oh yes, especially the blue ones. Have to watch out for those.
They get me every time.
We both laughed awkwardly.
So, You're one of the new neighbors?
Guilty as charged. I'm not quite charitable enough to take the trash out for complete strangers on a Saturday morning.
Nice.
He gave me a quick look up and down, then immediately turned red again and rubbed the back of his neck as he bent to pick up more of the scattered trash. A blush already.
I mean, you know, it's nice to have someone my age move in instead of just weird old people or something.
Okay, so he seemed nice. The purple hair was cool. I didn't mind the piercings either. I grinned slightly. That grin. Yeah, no weird old people over here.
Oh, by the way, I'm Elliot.
I'm Nora.
Cool. Nora. I will totally remember that. Nora.
He murmured my name to himself a few times as if trying to memorize it.
So,
Awkward silence descended. Introductions were always so weird.
where are you guys moving from?
Oh, just out of state. We used to live here a few years ago and just came back because my grandfather's sick.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, he's a bit better than he was, so it's okay. But we just wanted to be closer to him because of it.
Makes sense.
He gave me a sidelong look.
So, starting school here soon then? I mean, you're still in high school, right?
For another year. I'm a senior.
Cool. Same here.
My brother's a senior too.
Oh? So you're like twins or something?
Yeah. Lucky for you, I'm the nice one though.
So your brother's the evil one?
Sadly, yes. Spencer is evil.
Ah, cool. Well, I mean, it's not cool that your brother is evil, but it's cool that I lucked out and met the good twin. I have a stepsister. She's also kind of evil.
Ooh, an evil stepsister. That's pretty classic.
Between you and me, we should probably make sure they never meet. The world would definitely be in peril.
I bent down behind one of the bins to pick up some of the things he hadn't grabbed yet, smiling slightly.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
I don't mind. I liked him. He had a cute smile.
Hey, Mozzie!
I heard the voice and decided to pop my head up and see who was talking. Bad idea.
Watch out!
I remember getting hit in the backyard with a football, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can avoid my fate. Oh, now I'm shaking everything with my laughter. Sorry about that. Welp. So much for that plan. I barely even saw the football coming before it bounced off my head. Holy... what? I was pretty sure I actually saw stars. My legs buckled and I immediately felt Elliot grab me around the waist to keep me standing.
Whoa! Oh god, are you okay?
Wow, quick reflexes. Suspicious. His voice was right next to my ear. I could feel his breath ghosting across my cheek. Rapid footsteps sounded across my yard. Hey there.
I am so sorry. I didn't realize there was anyone else over here.
No, it's okay. I've always wondered what it would be like to have my brain knocked loose. It's quite freeing. That's quite an arm you have. The new guy laughed awkwardly.
I am so sorry. Are you okay? Should we help you inside?
It wasn't exactly terrible being held by Elliot, but I decided I should probably pull away and try to stand on my own. I shook my head, trying to rid myself of the blurred vision. No, I'm good. Awkward silence descended before Elliot laughed nervously.
That was kind of amazing.
I laughed, then winced and reached out to touch the bump forming on my head. Ow.
Let me look.
I turned toward him and let him examine my forehead while I stared at his strange eyes. They were such an odd shade of green. I wondered if they were contacts. I couldn't imagine anyone having eyes that color naturally.
Well, you have a bump.
Is that the official diagnosis, Doctor?
You should go put some ice on it. Man, I am so sorry. I feel terrible.
It's fine, really. Blame it on my utterly bad timing if you want.
I'm Danny, by the way. King of terrible first impressions.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty. And, by the way, Mozzie?
Oh, dumb nickname. I blame my stepsister. Just ignore it.
What are you even doing up this early? I don't usually see you before noon if I don't come over and drag you out of bed. Which is what I was about to do, by the way.
A night owl?
You could say that.
He rubbed the back of his neck again. Cute. He seemed to do that a lot when he was embarrassed. I'm not much of a morning person either.
Right. Mornings suck. Too bright. Too early.
Heyo, I hear you there.
I like mornings.
The only good thing about mornings is coffee. Nora! Can you stop flirting and get back in here to carry the rest of the crap out back? Evil twin, as I was saying. I flinched at the sound of Spencer's voice and shot a glare at the house just in time to see his auburn curls vanish back inside.
The evil twin?
Yes, unfortunately. We're still unpacking, so I should head back in. It was nice to meet you both.
Hey, where are you going to school? We're both at Stone Circle Academy. Maybe we'll see you there.
That's right! We'll be starting on Monday, so I'll definitely see you there.
Nice.
Don't forget to put ice on that.
I waved at them both and headed back inside. So concerned about the ice. I glanced back once and saw Danny elbow Elliot and say something to him. Elliot turned red and shoved Danny's shoulder. Uh-oh. Falling for the wrong boy already. He caught me watching and waved sheepishly. I waved back and went inside laughing. Mom made a bit of a fuss over the bump on my head and insisted on an ice pack while I ate breakfast. But by the time I finished, she was already dictating the list of chores I had to take care of when I was done. It was going to be a long, long day. Nice! Alright. We finished chapter 1. I think that's a good spot to stop for today. I'm already super jazzed about what we've seen. Even though I'm falling for Elliot already, I must stay strong and avoid him at all costs if I'm going to do my plan. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed what you've seen so far. And I will see you for more episodes of this. Looking forward to it. Until next time, I will see you later.